I honestly think this is probably the best 9mm round you can carry for all barrel lengths. Really surprised with it. It's very consistent. 9mm Winchester USA, also known as Winchester White Box Ammo Test. 9mm 147 grain. And the reason why I'm testing this is because I tested this in my 4-inch barrel versus some 22 Magnum a couple weeks back, and I got really good performance out of that. It's rated at 990 feet per second, and on my 4-inch barrel I got 993 feet per second. I got a good expansion, good penetration, all of that. It performed really well. So I'm thinking, I wonder how that will perform in other barrel lengths. So I'm going to go up to a 5-inch barrel. This is my 5-inch M&P 9 2.0. And then I'm going to go down to a 3.2-inch barrel. This is my Taurus G2C 3.2-inch. So I tested the compact gun with the ammo, did well. So now we're going to do the full size and the subcompact to see what we get. So I'm hopeful with this because it did so well in that 4-inch barrel. It's really surprising to what I saw. So I am going to go through the chronograph, see what kind of velocity and accuracy I can get at the same time out of those different barrel lengths. Then I'm going to hit my 10% clear ballistic test pack here. And I'm just going to go in the plain clear ballistics for one shot with each of those barrel lengths to see what our best potential is. And after that, I'm going to put on 4 layers of cotton polo here on the front of this 3-inch piece here that represents our pectoral muscle. After that, we'll have a 1/4-inch medium density fiber board that's going to represent hitting ribs or sternum. That'll be more of our real world test. And then I'm going to shoot at my steel to see what kind of practical accuracy I can get with these. So let's get started with this test. All right, I'm going to start with my subcompact here, see if I got any velocity loss versus that 4-inch barrel. So that 4-inch barrel got 993 feet per second average. I'm just going to do 3 rounds because I don't have a whole lot of these rounds. I have a half a box. So let's see if I get here, see how close we get to that 993 feet per second, 5 yards from the target, 4 yards from the chronograph. 973, 986, 983. So yeah, we only lost a little bit of velocity. So I wonder if there'll be any velocity gain over that 993 feet per second in my 5-inch barrel. So let's see what we get here. 1039, 1007, 1036. So not a lot. And I kind of expected that, being a heavier bullet. There's not a lot of powder in there, but we did get a little bit of velocity increase. So between the two of these, you know, there's a 40-50 feet per second difference. That might make a difference. So let's hit our ballistics gel block and see how these compare out of the different barrel lengths. All right, plain clear ballistics. Let's start with our 3.2-inch subcompact. See how this does. All right. 5-inch barrel. See what this does. Let's take a look. All right, so there was just a little bit of difference there. Not a huge difference though. And this is kind of what we typically see. You know, if you get a little more expansion and hit the block a little harder, you'll get a little bit less penetration. So I'm guessing that there is a little more expansion with that 5-inch barrel. But with our 3.2-inch subcompact, we have about 18 1/4 inches. That's perfectly fine because clear ballistics is a little less dense than real gel, so that's not really over penetration. With our 5-inch barrel, we have about 17 inches even. So overall, it's still doing pretty well. Now, this might be where, you know, the fabric and the MDF might come into play and start to cause issues. We might not see expansion with the 3.2 and then see it with the 5-inch because that little amount might make the difference, but let's find out. All right, 3.2-inch barrel, fabric and MDF. Let's hit it with our 5-inch now. See how that compares. Let's take a look. All right, so we saw kind of the same thing going on here. And yeah, it still performed well in the subcompact. You know, the damage almost looks greater in the subcompact than the bottom there, but sometimes looks are deceiving. Now what we're seeing here is a little bit difference in size of expansion in that first 3 inches, because with our subcompact, you know, we have good expansion, controlled expansion. With our full length barrel here, we have a little more expansion, we can tell. But overall, those look really, really good. And what we have here is perfectly ideal. 3.2 inch barrel, 15 3/4 inch penetration. With our 5-inch barrel, almost the same here. We got about 15.5 inches. So when we go through more of our real world simulation, it kind of all equals out to that more barrel length doesn't necessarily make a difference. The only time it's going to make it really any difference is practical shootability. So I do want to shoot my steel, see how they shoot for me for accuracy. All right, so here's these bullets up close, and our plain gel shots are in the front, our ones through our fabric and MDF are in the back. And what we're seeing here is really good expansion with our 5-inch barrel. With our 3.2 inch, just a little bit smaller, but almost the same. Just slightly different there. So in that regard, those plain gel shots are doing great. Now when it comes to our MDF, this is where that slight velocity change made a little bit of a difference here. Because with our 3.2 inch barrel, you know, this is not going to be, you know, anywhere near 1.5 times expansion, which I believe is something like 5 point, I want to say 5.23 or something. I don't know, something like that. As where our 5-inch barrel, if it's not 1.5 times expansion, it's really close. So we're seeing, you know, better expansion going through our MDF with our 5-inch barrel versus our 3.2 inch. But overall, it just looks like they're doing really, really well. So this, to me, in my opinion, this is one of the better rounds. Because you could just take this box of ammo and load every 9mm you have with it, and it's going to do pretty well. So I'm really, really surprised at that. And another thing about 147 grain is that it will go through windshields and keep going in a straight line better. I have not tested that but myself, but you know, I've seen evidence of that, and I've seen other people do that type of testing, and it'll go in a straight line better. That's why back in the day, before like Gold Dot and HST was around, one of the typical loads for law enforcement was 9mm 147 grain, because it's just more consistent when going through a barrier to keep going through. And a lot of that has to do with there's a lot of lead there. So you can strip off a lot of lead from hitting something hard, and you still have a lot of lead that provides more momentum to keep going deep after it goes through a hard barrier. So overall, pretty good ammo. So I wanted to show those up close. All right, so I want to do something a little different. I want to do 40 yards here with my subcompact. It doesn't really shoot very good. The pistol doesn't shoot very good beyond that. So I believe Eli Dickin was using something similar to this when he did that, when he stopped that mass shooter. So it's kind of a Dickin drill, but not really. I'm just going for 40 yards. See if I can make any hits with this. And that shot I missed, I did kind of feel myself pull the trigger. I don't shoot or jerk the trigger. I don't shoot this gun very much, but yeah, I felt myself kind of like just kind of let off a little and just jerked that. So that counted for that miss. I knew right away I was going to miss. So with the 5-inch barrel, I want to go back further to 75 because I think this will shoot really well. All right, 75 yards. I really like shooting at 75 yards. It's really fun. You know, some people talk about the transonic change where a round goes from supersonic to subsonic, that it can change its velocity. I don't know if that's really true or not, you know, but most 9mm rounds are traveling just above supersonic, and once they reach, you know, 30, 40, 50 yards, they do go subsonic. And to me, it doesn't make a whole lot of scientific sense that that would actually change the accuracy, but in my experience, it kind of does. And that could just be because most lighter rounds have more energy and more velocity. So maybe I'm anticipating recoil a little more, as we're with the 147 grams. They seem to be light, so I'm not. I don't know, but I do think they shoot pretty well. So 75 yards, 5-inch barrel. I'm gonna aim center mass, see if I can make a hit. All right, so that shot really well for me. It does look like my impacts are kind of high. You know, I get a lot of comments sometimes from people that say, you know, what was your holdover? Because at that range, I did the calculations and it dropped 6 inches at range. So are you aiming 6 inches high? And the answer is no. I'm aiming center mass. And a lot of times, especially with slow rounds, even in semi-automatic pistols, I've seen this phenomenon where at distance, it seems that the muzzle is rising a little bit before that bullet leaves. So your actual sights are going to be holding over at the moment that bullet leaves. Even though I was aiming center mass, they're actually, scientifically, if you went in a slow motion camera, it'd probably be a little high. So they would be technically aiming high, but I'm not aiming high when I first press off that shot, because I know that, you know, slower rounds can do that. And I see the opposite with fast rounds. It's almost like the pistol is sometimes sighted for that, to take that into consideration. And a lot of times I'll shoot aiming center with a very fast, like 357 SIG. It'll hit below the target a bunch of times. So overall, what I'm going to say here is I honestly think this is probably the best 9mm round you can carry for all barrel lengths. I'm really, really surprised with it. It's very consistent. You know, even though we didn't get a huge increase in velocity in a 5-inch barrel, we did not get a huge decrease in the shorter barrel. And that makes sense because, you know, a heavier bullet is going to get up to pressure with less powder. Therefore, there's less powder to burn. There's less variance there. And what we're seeing here, also the heavier weight, this is kind of hard to explain, but a lot of bullets like Gold Dot and whatnot, because they're hitting with such high velocities, they have to be designed kind of a certain way or else the bullet will rip itself apart. Also, if you're going too slow, it has to be designed a certain way if there's not a lot of energy, or else the bullet won't expand. With 147 grain, what you have is you have just a typical bullet, but because there's not a lot of velocity, it's not going to rip the bullet apart, because even though the velocity is slow, the bullet has more bullet weight. It's kind of constructed better, even though it's not constructed better, if that makes any sense. So it doesn't rip apart, but there's still a lot of energy from the weight that will cause the expansion. So overall, 147 grain in this particular load seems to be like a really good choice. And the other part to this is, even though the energy wasn't that high, it performed well, but the recoil was so super low. And out of the 5-inch barrel, it's like shooting something like a 22 Magnum or something like that, or like a 38 wad cutter. Out of the 3.2-inch barrel, it feels like a typical maybe 4-inch barrel, 9mm plus P load, something like that. So overall, this is a very, very good round. I highly recommend it after doing this. So very good round. So that's what you get today. So as always, comment, share, and like, and thanks for watching.